G'day folks and welcome to Australian UFO Sightings official podcast. I'm your host Anthony Goodall and you're listening to Encounters Down Under. Here we invite guests on the show to tell us about their encounters with aliens and UFOs, where most of our episodes were streamed live from our Facebook page, which gave listeners the opportunity to ask questions to our guests regarding their encounter. If you have had an encounter and would like to be a guest on the show, please get in touch with us. You can send us a message through our Facebook page, Encounters Down Under, or send us an email at australianUFOsightings@outlook.com.au. Be sure to join us on Facebook and share with your friends and family to help us grow, and hopefully encourage others to come forward with their encounter. If you're an iTunes listener and a fan of the show, why not give us that 5-star rating and review, and you could have your review featured on the podcast. But enough of that, let's get into what you've been waiting for. So kick back, relax with your favourite beverage, and enjoy the show. Hey, g'day Joyce, welcome to the show.
Hi Anthony. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
No, it's great having you on here. It's absolutely fantastic. I'm glad you got in touch with me there because you actually got in touch with me via a friend of yours that we've had on the podcast previously. So I'm actually really grateful for her to go and put you forward towards me there to go and get on the show and talk about this whole agenda. It's absolutely fantastic. So
yeah. Thank you.
So, look, you've had some experiences of your own. I'll let you get in touch with that. And you also dabbled a bit in the UFO investigation side of things as well. So I'll let you go and take over and tell us about your experiences there.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Anthony. I've always been an open-minded person, and I remember reading Whitley Strieber's book, Communion, when I was a teenager, and that scared the hell out of me. But I've always been open-minded, but I had not seen a UFO until 1996. So I was not a teenager anymore. I was with my then boyfriend. We were at his friend's farm, and it was just him and I. We were having a bit of a retreat there. It was kind of late afternoon, around 4 or 5 p.m. The sky was perfectly blue, and we saw this perfectly round sphere. It was pearly white, and it was glowing and dimming, and just moving really fast. And we were watching it going really fast across the sky. Then it zigzagged, it disappeared and reappeared at the point where we first saw it. And then it was just flowing across the sky again, really fast, dimming and glowing, zigzagged, and then just disappeared. And we were elated, like we were thinking, what was that? Wow, that was a UFO. Yeah, because we didn't know what it was, never seen anything like it. Then in 2009, I was in New Zealand on top of a mountain. I was also with my boyfriend then, but it was only myself who saw it. By the time I yelled out to him to look up, it was too late. But I saw the same craft, so this white sphere, glowing and dimming, just going across the sky really fast. But it didn't zigzag that time. So again, I saw it again twice. Then 10 years later, I was watching YouTube and I saw an ad by Matthias Di Stefano. It was an ad for his new series called Initiation on Gaia. And it caught my eye because there was a graphic, example of the craft that I saw. So the white sphere. And he said it was a Pleiadian craft. And it resonated with me because once I saw that UFO, I started looking more into it. And first you look into the different cases and what evidence there was, and where people have seen them, all the famous cases, etc. But then later on, you go into more of a personal journey as to what I started asking why I saw that craft, who was driving that craft, is there a connection with me? And I found that it's not unusual for people to see the same type of craft several times if they've got a relationship with the occupants. And I say that now because I do believe that they were probably off-world or maybe Pleiadians. So, you go on this personal journey, and it's quite interesting because I've had the Pleiadian theme in my life throughout. So when I was a teenager, I bought a cassette tape called Music of the Pleiades. I had a reading with Simon Parkes. He's another experiencer, and he said that my first incarnation was into a Pleiadian family. When I was young, I used to draw pictures of women with blonde hair. And, I was born in Singapore, so I don't know why. And I would draw stars around the blonde ladies. And so, Pleiades are typically blonde, but not all of them are blonde, but it's just a stereotype. I've had clairvoyance. My boyfriend went to see a clairvoyant, and she said, she saw me with blonde hair. I had a housemate who said she saw someone who looked exactly like me, except she had blonde hair. And I said, are you sure? Did she have Asian features? And she said, yeah, she had Asian features, but she had blonde hair. I don't know. So just really strange things like that. And, I had books on Pleiades as well. So they were the two times that I saw a UFO, but I've had dreams as well. And from there, it just catapulted into myself joining an investigation group. So when I went to Melbourne, Victoria, I joined the Victoria UFO Action Group, or the UFOA. That was run by Ben Hell, and he trained us up to be investigators. And we would look into cases. People would that they would put in their cases on our website, and when we met up, we would look through the cases and sift out the ones that we want to investigate. So there's quite a few interesting cases we've had. Lights in the sky, we didn't really bother them with those so much because there's so many of those. But ones which left some sort of evidence, or there was more than one witness, we would follow up, or the more interesting cases. And we also held events where we had international speakers like Richard Dolan, James Fox. So James Fox came to interview the Westall witnesses as well, and they were featured on his documentary, The Phenomenon. So we had a lot of fun doing that. Unfortunately, the group has disbanded now. But, did you want to know about some of the cases that we had, or I'll let you ask some questions?
Yeah, absolutely. I suppose when you were going through the investigation side of things there, you would have had a lot of things that were pretty easily explainable, where people were sort of questioning what the possibilities are, especially nighttime ones, a lot of things can be mistaken. I'm sure, how many do you think you found, going through these things were easily dismissible as something explainable?
Mm-hmm. A few things, sometimes it was inconclusive, but sometimes we would, quite a lot of them we would think, okay, it might be the shadow or the reflection of the moon, or, we had to go through, there was a whole list of things that we had to go through and tick what it could have been. So we would use some of the software. I've forgotten the names of them, but you can look up the constellation and the weather patterns at that time and date. You could also look up the, I think it's Star Tracker, or where you can look up the planes going through that time and the satellites. So we would see whether there were satellites going through at that time and date. And we would ask people when they submit their reports to give dates, times, as much information as possible so we can have a look. Yeah, but there were some we don't know. We just said, oh, okay, it could be any number of those things, or it could be unidentified. So, yeah, sometimes it was inconclusive as well. So I would say, from memory, maybe 50-50. 50% of them we thought, well, we don't really know. 50%, oh yeah, I think we could be this.
Yeah.
We could be that. But we would also ask the person, were they intoxicated at the time? What was happening at the time? And whether there were more than one witnesses, whether there were any markings.
Yeah, that's the thing too.
Yeah.
Like, a lot of people don't understand too. Like when you're doing a bit of investigation work, that you got to ask these questions. Like if you have been using substances or intoxicated in any way. As disrespectful as it sounds, it's one of those things that you sort of got to rule out of all possibilities and that sort of thing as well, So there's nothing disrespectful about it. It's just that if you want to find out what it is, if you want answers, we have to ask these sort of things, Because when I'm not sure you understand, like when you're investigating the things, like you approach everything with as much respect as you possibly can. And unfortunately, you got to poke at these sort of niggly little questions where they might feel a bit defensive or, guarded in that sense. It's nothing to do, it's not like we're trying to discredit what you're seeing. It's like we're trying to get an idea of what you're seeing and to try and rule out every single possibility to sort of get an idea what this thing is that you're seeing, But, yeah, sometimes, I don't know about yourself, but I've had people there, they come with me, approach me with their experience, there or a bit of footage that they question there. And whilst, some are easily dismissible as something that's explainable, there's times there where it's possibly something else. You can't quite figure out what it is, but you can't say it's an alien craft either. But then you get some people that come back at me and then they start abusing me, attacking me, going, "No, you're full of shit. You don't know what you're talking about." It's I don't know, it's a sad reality when it comes to you investigation sort of stuff like that. People just want to believe what they want to believe. They want to believe everything's a UFO sort of thing. And unfortunately,
Yeah, exactly.
I find a lot of people don't, in the investigation side, you got to rule out all these things. They don't do that. Just go straight to the UFO card and want to claim as that, and then just get defensive. So, yeah, I don't know. I find that you'll probably have the same sort of responses with some people during your time.
Yeah, I guess people want to, they say, yeah, we know what we saw, we can identify it, sure, but it's nothing personal. We still have to go through the list and make it, otherwise it's not, we have to be seen as credible as well. So we had to try and apply some of those investigation procedures to sift out what it could have been. Yeah. Don't want to burst anyone's bubble, or we don't want to be a wet blanket.
Yeah.
But yes, sure. Yeah, we had to go through all that.
Yeah, and it's a sad reality of being an investigator on this sort of aspect of things, isn't it? but
Yes.
It is what it is. So yeah, look, go through it. Obviously you would have had some pretty incredible experiences put forward to you. Tell us a few of those, if you don't mind.
Oh, well, I'll tell you some of the interesting ones. So there's a case, and I can't give his name because he's got his own little video out. His name is Gareth, and he reported seeing a craft at night, him and his wife. I think it's about, I can't remember what year now, but it was January the 2nd. January the 2nd, him and his wife were walking, I think a few years back, walking around Hillsville Reservoir in Victoria, and they were both feeling angsty, because they were giving up smoking, and so they thought, well, let's go for a walk. So they walked around Hillsville Reservoir, which is a lovely body of water, at around 2 a.m. And they both saw, it was a clear clear night but pitch black. They saw this craft, this triangular craft, come down, and then the whole place lit up like it was on fire. And the craft went in the water and came out again. And there were some lights. I think he said they were yellow and red lights blinking, but yeah, there was no sound. And then they both heard these really heavy footsteps, those footsteps where the ground would shake when like someone's walking. They can feel the vibration. And they felt that it was something with really big lungs, and it was walking, it was running or walking behind them. And they started running because they had this foreboding feeling, that not to get out of there. And I think his wife was wanting to scream. And so they were running, and this thing came past them, and he said it looked a lot like a yowie or a Bigfoot. So they both saw that, and I because there were two witnesses, I chatted to him. He sounded logical. He said, the next day or 2 days, him and his friends were having a gathering, like a dinner thing at a place, and they all saw some UFOs as well. So he shared that story. I thought that was very interesting. There have been many other, I guess, cases where there's been people have seen Bigfoot-looking creatures in UFOs as well. Yeah, so that's been interesting. There's another case of a lady called Marie, and she's also given her story to me. I interviewed her. She talked about some men in black visiting her school when she was young and measuring everyone. So she's, I don't know, maybe you could interview her as well. I can give you her name, but
yeah, absolutely.
So hers was more of a testimonial. I think she does have some photos of kind of lights in the sky, things like that, but she sees them a lot. And there was another unusual case. I'm not sure whether it's UFO related. It may not be, but this lady, she's seen UFOs before, and I think she saw a UFO and then went inside, and then during the night, and I might not be getting the specifics right because it's quite a while ago since I spoke to her, but she fell asleep in the lounge room, and it's like a whole family just fell asleep, people were sleeping in their bedroom, but she fell asleep in the lounge room, and there were these orbs that came into the room. Some were quite large, and she felt like she felt paralyzed, and she felt this kind of foreboding, very negative feelings from them, like she didn't like them. And she was paralyzed for a while. She couldn't move. And then when she was able to move later, when they disappeared, she found that, like her dog was very sleepy, like he just woke up from some sort of anesthesia. And they all kind of felt like that. But what she found was she had a tissue box, and the tissues, they were white, but then they turned purple. Like there were these round ink blots on the tissues, and she saved them. She put them in a plastic bag, and she gave them to us. But the problem is finding, I guess, a lab or having enough money for them to analyze it. And it's like, well, what are we analyzing for as well? So that was interesting. That was something that was left behind. Yeah, but, Victoria has had a lot of very, very interesting, famous cases, like Westall, as you know, Meltone, the policeman chasing UFO for hours, Kelly Cahill. So, yeah.
Yeah, it sort of seems to be the hot spot with like real full-on experiences, doesn't it? It's makes you wonder like what's so interesting about the Victoria state to have all these, real, exponential sort of experiences there that, overrule every other experience that people are having, like, to get the real sort of media attention as well. I know people keep claiming like they're seeing objects around Victoria as well, like whether they're mistaking them as planes or something like, I don't know, but like, how people are describing these things of seeing them at the moment, it just seems like what's happening down in Victoria that's so, or make it such a hotspot. Like, I don't know what's going on down there, So I don't know. Is there anything like on your side of things, like found anything in that nature?
I've only just moved back to WA, and I haven't really looked into the UFO cases in WA as yet. I haven't had time, but apparently there's been a lot of sightings in Esperance, and also, I guess near Pine Gap, but that's Northern Territory. Yeah, I haven't really looked too much in WA as yet. I haven't done any investigating. I've been looking into more of the paranormal cases or experiences. Yeah, I'd love to. And I think that people that are living away from the city tend to experience them more.
Yeah, especially probably like more at the mine sites and all sorts of stuff there, in mining communities and whatnot. I think there seems to be a fair bit of interest around like gold mines specifically. There's always seems to be something going around there, just from stories I've heard in the past. Whether they've got the interest in the gold, I don't know. I can't say I've really heard much in that sort of genre where they are getting the gold for whatever reasons. I don't know. I don't know what their interest could be. Just to me, I feel like gold would be a bit beyond them, unless it's something to do with the technology they might need for the technology, like chips or some form. Anyway, I don't know. It's just one of those things. I guess we'll never know, to be honest.
Yeah, definitely. Gold seems to be a common theme, going back to like the Sumerian texts, very ancient texts, mining gold. They talk about the Anunnaki coming from another world and then using these they apparently genetically modified these. I wouldn't say that a specific species of monkeys to help them to mine gold, using them as slaves. Yeah, gold seems to be a theme, and I think you're right, something about the technology that they use with gold. Yeah. But I mean, I just had a thought. Our Aborigines or our Indigenous people, they often talk about being from the Pleiades, from the Seven Sisters. That's in their dream time. I went and visited a African shaman in 2007 in Kuruman, which is around 6 hours drive from Johannesburg. He lived out in almost like in the middle of nowhere. So this guy called Credo Mutwa, Credo, and then Mutwa. He's an author. He's written a few books about his African culture and the myths and legends and history. But he was made famous through David Icke, who interviewed him. And there's a series of interviews called The Reptilian Agenda with Credo. And Credo, so we went there, myself and a group of people. We were part of a tour group. I think it was the first and only time that tour group went to see him, because it's just so hard to get hold of him. So we went there, and yeah, the first thing I saw were these amazing sculptures, and some of them were of alien. They look like alien from like the manted. And then we saw other sculptures as well, and paintings, and he's done a lot of paintings of aliens. He talked about meeting some bird people, and also the Chitahuri, which is the reptilians. He talks about them as well. He said they've got this third eye there where they can squirt out venom.
That's different.
Yeah. Yes. He talked about him and some other shamans were kind of, they do a lot of journeys where they're walking, and they found these he was given this flesh to eat. It was like, he said it was like this old grey flesh, and he was told, eat this. So he ate it. They all ate it, and they just felt really, really sick for days and started hallucinating for like several days. They were in an altered state for many, many days, or it might have been weeks. And then he was told that piece of flesh is from a grey alien.
Wow.
Yeah, it was very, very interesting. Yeah, so he had a lot of interesting stories. He used to have this really heavy necklace, and hanging off it were the planets and a couple of alien figures, and Adam and the first man, first woman, just to remind him of the origins. He used to wear that around his neck a lot, but it was stolen when we saw him. There were a lot of children around. He adopted a lot of children who were orphans due to their parents dying from AIDS. But he had his wife there, and there was a hub of women, and they were making beads, and he had a herb garden. So he tried to treat illnesses using herbs, and yeah, there were lots and lots of jars of herbs as well. What else? It was interesting after, so he did a reading with me. So he's caught throwing the bones. There was some bones, and his wife would throw them, and he hardly looked at them, and he just gave me this reading and told me things that I don't know how he knew. And one of them was he knew my sister's Chinese name, and he wouldn't know. Nobody in that group would know my sister's Chinese name. So to me that was a bit of a personal confirmation that somehow he knew some things more than, some extrasensory ability there. And the feeling that I got was love. Like, he was one of the most humble men I've ever met, and I couldn't help but love him. I just felt, wow, I really love you. And I think we all felt that way. We all just really loved him. He passed away not long ago. Just quickly have a look. Well, he passed away not long ago, at the age of around 89. But when I came back to Australia, my mind was squeaky clean for 3 weeks. Like, I didn't realise that my mind was, it's like a dirty window. It was just squeaky clean for 3 weeks. And I had an interesting dream when I came back. So anyway, that was my trip to see Credo Mutua. And he talked about, ETs. And ETs were part of their myths, their legends, their ancient history.
It's a bit of a spin out, isn't it? With like when you talk about like the shamanism and sort of things, like, I don't know, it like seems a bit out there as well. but there's obviously something that's connected the world to these vibrations, this sort of magical sense to, the whole world. But like shamanism and different sort of religious cultures in that spiritual sense, like like I talk like the proper spiritual sense, not the religious Christianity or all that. It's been like that whole thing along human society. Every tribe has sort of had someone that was in that spiritual figure, always in that being the weird guy in the village or whatever. And sort of makes you wonder, like, I suppose, like, today's society, we don't really understand it anymore because it's been lost. So it's sort of like when you hear about it today, you sort of question it, and it sounds crazy. And you do get these people that are of that spiritual sense that have a good vibe. You can talk to a random person, then you can sense a good vibe from them because they're giving off a really good vibration. You sort of like I don't know. It changes your whole vibration. You're happy. You're like really like looking forward to being around the person. And I'm guessing that's how the shaman would have had that same sort of sense as well. And so it's crazy. Like I don't know. People have a different sense on everything, and there's always seems to be a connection with the spiritual side to the UFO side of seeing things, or aliens. To I don't know. There's a connection there. Even like with the when you were mentioning about the Yowie and the cryptid thing there, there's something that's going around that we just can't seem to get a grasp on and get an understanding on. But yet, the ancient civilizations, they knew all about this. They already had things figured out, and it's like, where did this all get lost throughout human history, where we can't, dive back in and trigger back into the spiritual side of things? Like, where has it all gone? Why can't we figure it out again? Have you got any answers at all, or any ideas maybe?
Well, I think when science, when I can almost, I mean, I think when science, the science method started to become more prevalent and popular in our culture, and it's almost the problem with that is, I mean, I think true science really should be open to studying any phenomena that seems to be experienced by a lot of people, or even people worldwide. But I think it's kind of become a little bit dogmatic. The only nuts and bolts, only if there's physical evidence, otherwise it doesn't exist. So I think we've lost a lot of maybe the ancient knowledge there, or and become a bit more close-minded. And I think there's been a cover-up too with the, whoever manages the UFO sightings and interactions, might be the secret military. I think there has been a big cover-up, and I think, now after 50 or 55 years, they're starting to look into it again, and mainstream media are not ridiculing it as they used to before. I think there was a time, I don't know whether it's up to 1950s, I'm not sure, but there was a time when people didn't really question whether UFOs existed. Like if people saw a UFO, it was straight in the papers. It was just, oh yeah, there's a UFO. But then I think there was a time after that where people started to question it and think, well, it's false unless proven true. So coming from that assumption that ETs don't exist, or there's no other intelligent life other than us on this planet.
Yeah, and one of the comments in the chat here made a really good point too, that experts can only make money if they are correct. So that's a really good point there. Thanks to Aaron for that one. Which is really good point. And I think it was around about obviously after Roswell, I think it was in 47, I think that happened from memory.
Mm-hmm.
There was a bit of a UFO hype. And then I think that's when the government, US government particularly, started covering it all up. And I think during those, maybe the next decade after that, there was still a bit of a hype with the UFO things because it was, it was interesting and new. And then somehow the US military got some sort of control on, starting to make people crazy and, you know, all that sort of side of things, you know, calling people drunkens, druggos, whatever. You know, I sort of feel like that's where we sort of start losing the whole UFO, or even just the whole phenomena where we like things weren't getting questioned as much, you know, but then they started becoming discredited and doubted, I suppose I should say. You know, but like you look at with a spirit, like I don't know if it's a spiritual thing or if it's like a paranormal kind of thing as well. You know, where people are doing like remote viewing, all that sort of stuff. You know, it's an interesting side of things. What would that come under? Was that a paranormal thing or maybe a spiritual thing? What would you call that?
I guess it depends on how you define what you define paranormal and spiritual. I mean, spiritual, does spiritual include, you know, looking at extrasensory abilities, you know, that we are more than this physical body and that we can see even without our physical eyes? Is that spiritual? Like, because we are bigger than this physical body? And yeah, I've got a good friend, Sandra Hillard. She's a really good remote viewer, but she's also had a lot of paranormal experiences herself, and also experiences where her energy would interact with the physical objects. So, you know, if she was experiencing some really intense anger, the paintings on her walls would fall down, or, you know, or objects breaking, or, you know, someone feeling the full force of her, kinetic energy. But yeah, so spiritual paranormal, to me, spiritual is having, I guess, a connection or an awareness that there is some, I guess, something bigger than, like, there's a I know people, you know, there's people talk about, the divine or God, or, you know, so I'm trying to get away from those words because it sounds so new agey, but it's that real deep connection to, you know, like nature and the force that makes us alive, like that makes all of us alive and conscious. Like, what makes us conscious? What is it that allows me to be able to have an experience as a individual conscious person or consciousness, rather than, like, why am I me and why are you? Why can't you experience what I'm experiencing, etc.? Like, why are you contained within you and I'm contained within me? Like, we're having these individual experiences, and yet during maybe some meditations or shamanic experiences, we can also get a glimpse or experience merging as well. So, you know, so then my individual consciousness can also feel or experience not being an individual, but being able to experience maybe some collective consciousness, or feeling maybe, you know, what a group of people are feeling or the animals are feeling. People talk about being connected to everything, everywhere.
Yeah, supposedly
Yeah.
like empaths. So like they say they can sort of sense emotions, like, you know, saying like with animals and humans. Obviously, you walk into a room and they can just feel like a different energy or a different vibe, you know. So I think they can sense like if the room's, I don't know, happy or angry or something, like, you know. It's funny you mentioned though, where your friend was having an experience there where it was her sort of kinetic energy. Because it's funny that you mentioned that. I was on a podcast there with the Occult Rejects recently, and the question got asked in regards to poltergeist and that, and it's now becoming a claim that with poltergeist, it's your own energy that could be very well producing that sort of reaction in that, you know, that area or your home or something. And then like people, obviously, because they don't understand it, it becomes like a paranormal sort of encounter. but without realizing. Like, obviously, it depends on the emotion that that person's going through at the time. If it's like a really downhill dive emotion, like where they're starting to get real down the slumps and dumps, or they're just really angry. It is said that, like, with the paranormal side of things, it's supposed to attract negative energies. So, is it like a angry spirit that's coming into the sort of area and invading their own personal space and doing these things, or is it their own sort of energy that's outbursting because it's so clustered in its own anger or sort of depression or whatever, something in that regard? Like, how do you feel on that one?
I think it's both. I think sometimes it is the person and it's their energy. Like my friend Sandra, she was in that really intense mood, and I can talk about her because she's written a book on it. She comes into a room and things start happening. She starts influencing the physical objects. But I think sometimes it might be another entity that borrows maybe the energy of that person and uses that. Because, like Keith Linder, I don't know if you've heard of Keith Linder, or he's in the US, but he's lived in a haunted place for many years, and he's got photos, he's got videos. Yeah, I saw a video. Yeah, it was just this objects in the house just like bang, like just flew, like just flew against the wall. But his friends have seen it. If it was his energy, why would he? Who decides what happens? Because there's these this really black writing, like and the paint is from a very very rare sort of paint. 666 written on his office. His computer is all smashed. Why would he, if it's coming from him, why would he destroy his things? And how is it decided as to what is being destroyed and what isn't? Like, yeah, he's had to replace his office a few times, cost him a lot of money. Yeah, so I guess it's all these different questions as to, if it's coming from someone's own being, why would they, or you could say it's unconscious, but then it just, some of these cases seem too specific, like there's a bit of a direction, like writings on the wall. What does that mean?
Yeah. So, are you saying that like a spiritual being has like written on the walls, or and can anyone else see this, or is it just themselves?
No, people can see it. It's written 666 on the wall, and it's with this paint from made from cow bones or burnt cow bones. It's really rare to find. Why would he deface his own walls? It's, he had to spend a lot of money to clean up, and, his girlfriend also was a witness and experiencer of all these things. I guess these extreme cases, excuse me, another case, Andrea Perrin, she's also in the US, the movie The Conjuring, that movie was loosely based on her experience. Yeah, knives, just flying across the room. But they could see the apparition. They actually can see. Some people can see these apparitions or ghosts. If in want of a better word, ghosts. And there's more than one person that can see the same ghost and describe them in the same way. So that, to me, I guess, I guess it tells me that, well, there is a possibility that these ghosts or disincarnated spirits do exist and have their own consciousness and able to manipulate the physical things in our world for some reason.
Yeah, it sort of makes you wonder too, like, are they beings from another dimension that is on the alien UFO agenda as well, as well as, like, the cryptids like the Yowies, and I'm sure you would have heard, like, skinwalkers, all that kind of thing too. Like, I think skinwalkers are supposed to be some sort of evil shaman in that kind of regard, and it sort of makes you wonder, like, where is this whole connection joining in? So are they from their own dimensional plane where they're all sort of, well, like, we sort of like mingle in this one world? Are they in that same sort of world too and can travel between? Yeah, where has this all come through in a connection? Like, have you found anything along your lines of researching it at all?
Yeah, I have looked into the whole multi-dimensional, theory that we share the same space with different frequencies or different dimensions. So I've heard it being described as, like having a different radio station. So, yeah, you just have to fine tune into that frequency and then you can connect to that frequency or that dimension. I think it's very plausible, because if that's the case, it can explain a lot of things. It can explain why something can manifest and then disappear. It can explain things appearing, like my friend Sandra, she's her necklace, and many people too, and including myself, things have disappeared and then reappeared in a really strange spot. So yeah, perhaps, there's some things can go into a different dimension, we can't see it, and reappear back into this dimension where we can see it. And it might explain why some of these UFOs, they're able to disappear, reappear. Maybe they can travel vast distances because they can go through a different dimension and then come back into this dimension. It's all, it's a whole different type of physics. I mean, I'm not really full bottled on it, but, the whole quantum physics as well. Maybe we have to look more into that, because that would explain a lot of the paranormal side of things.
Yeah, definitely, and hopefully we do figure something out soon, because obviously, like, we've got the big questions there of, the cryptids, the UFOs, and the Yowies and that. But then you also got people that are claiming that they've been able to speak to, ancestors, like, past loved ones. And so it sort of makes you wonder, like, where does that connect into it as well? Because is that a different sort of plane, or is there a connection between those two worlds, where all three of these worlds are linking up to a, our soul, our spiritual side of things, and, it goes into the UFO, cryptid, paranormal side of things, I don't know, have you found anything in that regard as well? If there's a difference between our sort of spirits to their kind of spiritual stuff?
You mean so when people die, where do they go? Can they come back? I think, again, if we borrow that theory of different frequencies, and I've heard it described as using the electromagnetic frequency or the electromagnetic wave, frequency wave. So there's, I think, gamma ray, infrared, and then there's white light. There's two bands, which is white light, and it's a very thin, very small, it's only two bandwidths, which is white light, which is, I think, what, our physical world. And then I can't remember the order. I think the next is microwave. And so, maybe once we leave the white light or the physical world. And I guess we have to assume that we have a surviving consciousness from our physical body. So we have to assume that we have a soul. So when we, leave that physical body, perhaps it does go into an in-between frequency or dimension before, it goes off to whichever frequency that people go after they die. But maybe they can come back and visit and go in between. But they would have to, I guess, adjust their frequency so that we can see them or so they can interact with us. But I've heard a lot of stories, even from my clients, of, my grief and loss clients, of paranormal things happening when their loved ones die, such as the cup that they always drink out of would just suddenly burst and break.
Wow.
A song, like their favorite song, would just come on at a particular time. I had one lady, she had a couple of phone calls from her deceased husband. So his number would come up, but it was a missed call. And on the date of the missed call was the date of her daughter's birthday, but 5 years in the future.
Oh, wow.
But all the other missed calls, was the correct date, except for those 2 missed calls. She took her phone to the Telstra shop. They couldn't figure out how that happened. I myself, I had a friend. She was in her 80s. She was in the hospital. I had a phone call from her. I answered it, and I just heard static. And I think a couple of times as well, just static. And then later on, I found out that so the phone call happened after she had passed away, like the date and the time.
That's scary.
So
that is scary.
Yeah, but to me, it's like, that was my friend. I felt, I felt like that sadness and that, love for her. It wasn't as scary for me. But if it was a random, maybe, I don't know, like some weird random and a voice coming through, yeah, that would be scary for me. Yeah, so it was interesting that I got those phone calls, and I had that emotional, I don't know, when I answered, yeah, I had that kind of real intense emotions, and I knew she died. Like, I started crying, even before I found out that she died. But I had, heard, quite a few stories like that, or even just people, they just swear that they felt the presence of the person that passed.
Yeah, so there's definitely a spiritual connection between us, in a sense there, where, like, especially our particular loved ones there, and yeah, it just makes you aware and how we can use these abilities again, that's been lost, or it's a really real enigma when it comes to this whole thing, isn't it? Like, even though we're trying to find the answers, we still can't find them, unfortunately. Like, everything is all speculation still to this day. But obviously, a lot of things, like, in a sense, they make sense, but they don't make sense at the same time. It's a really weird little rabbit hole.
Yeah,
it's weird because like, when people pass, like, you hear of stories there where, like, well, we're talking about, like, they can pass through to light and go to a different dimension or somewhere else, but then you got other spirits or claims of spirits that remain in the area, like they might stay in that house, and they'll be there for years later. Like, people move into the house, and that sort of spiritual paranormal phenomena still continues in that house. So, like, I don't know whether the spirits are choosing to stay and haunt that area, if you want to call it haunting. But
yes.
it makes you wonder, doesn't it?
Yes, it does. I actually did a ghost busting short course with Rob Tilley, and we went to a school in Sydney that the staff who stayed late at night, they would complain of seeing, like, feeling footsteps or hearing footsteps and feeling something or someone following them. And also there was a particular room where the blinds would sometimes go up and down by itself, and jazz music just blaring. Um, and it would scare the hell out of the teaching staff. So Rob Tilley, he's been a Ghostbuster for many, many years. So we went to see this school, and I felt, when I walked through the school, I felt a lot of depression, because I can feel that I'm a little bit of an empath. I can feel the emotions. And that room where the blinds went up and down, I did not want to go in there. It just felt really like a really yucky energy. It felt unfriendly, kind of hostile. And then when Rob did the clearing and he said, oh, there's a teacher there, there's a principal there, he's still wearing the 70s gear, he didn't want to leave, this gave him purpose. He said who's going to look after the school. He almost like, watching him, it was almost like he was counselling that teacher and saying, look, your friends are gone, you're actually you're dead, your friends are gone, it's a better life when you go through that light, see that light, that tunnel, go through there. And it took quite a lot of convincing before he eventually went. But I actually felt a change in the room, and he cleared that other room, the back room too, and it felt a lot more friendly. I wanted to go into that room. Apparently in that room there was a lot of fights. There were some physical fights as well, like in the past, many years. So I guess I kind of experienced the change in energy, or the change in the atmosphere or emotional energy. But sorry, what was your question?
Yeah, so that's all right. Like people, they choose to stay, and some
Yes.
people choose to
Oh,
sort of go.
yes, that's
So
right.
how they sort of
Yeah.
why they sit by.
Yeah. So when people have a big attachment to the place, so they really, have they really love the place where they live, they don't want to go, or attachment to the people or their family, or they don't believe in an afterlife and they're too scared to go through to the light, and they're just wanting to hang on.
Yeah, that's fair enough. I suppose it's all down to personal preference,
Yeah.
and if that's the case, yeah. No, look, I understand that there's there can be like a lot of sentimental. No, I lost myself then. Sentimental value to something, that connection, sentimental connection.
Yeah. Yeah. There's fear of death as well. And also they don't experience time like we do. Like it might be 100 years and they feel like it's just yesterday.
Yep.
It's just, yeah. And a lot of ancient, I guess, cultures would talk about this. Like it's some of the Eastern, I guess, religions, it's real for them. Like they talk about these ghosts. Some people marry ghosts.
Yeah.
And so they get these benefits, they get, good luck in career, etc. Anyway, that's another story. But tying back to the UFOs, it'll come back to me. I had a thought about how that tied back with the UFOs.
Yeah. Well, while you give it a bit of time now, I've got a bit of a story for you. I was doing it in with another podcast there with Triffon from Unlocking the Code, so I shared that to them. Go check their podcast. They're awesome. They go through a lot of different aspects of the whole unknown sort of thing. But anyway, he was saying his grandfather passed away, and they were at the wake and having a few drinks. They had a bottle of port there, and there was enough there to go and share around with everyone. And there's one extra glass, and so they're going, oh look, here's granddad's glass here. So anyway, they're all talking, having a good old time, talking and whatnot. And sometime later, they went back to the glass, and it was empty. And next minute, they're
Oh.
sort of like gone, who emptied the glass? Like, and the next minute they start bickering and arguing between each other, blaming them, pointing the finger and whatnot. And in the end, they're sort of like coming to realize, like, no one's touched that glass. So what's
Mhm.
happened? So like, obviously, you're gonna assume that Granddad's got that last bit of port there, and you go, "Yep, thanks guys, cheers, thank you very much." And yeah, it's sort of it's spooky, but it's sort of like amazing too. Like if that is a real thing, it's cool.
Yeah. Maybe that's why people offer food. You know how they have food on the altars for the dead.
Yep, I said the exact same
Mm.
thing in the podcast. As Asian
Oh,
cultures. So yeah,
yes.
yeah, I think it's more
Yeah.
more. Sorry, go on.
Oh no, my grandmother did it. She had an altar with food offering to
Yeah.
them, but they didn't disappear.
But no, it's cool though. It's like that's the same thing. Like there's got to be some sort of connection there where they must have thought, well, something did happen in the past there. Where these sort of things were happening. But yeah, it's sort of strange. But like then you go like going back to the UFOs and stuff like that. People are worshipping the dead or some sort of godly figure that could be aliens or anything on that sort of regard. We have been worshipping them for years, and that could be our gods. So obviously, going through those kind of spiritual UFO aspects of things, there's got to be some sort of connection between the two there, where people meditating, going astral planing. I think is that the right word. You know, they're connecting to these beings of these other dimensions through that world, through that meditation aspect, and then you can go through the ley lines throughout the earth. You can get like a geological sort of map where these things are connecting to different points in the world where we have monolithic or some sort of I'm trying to think of the words here now. Like Stonehenge and the pyramids. You got the Egyptian pyramids, the Aztec pyramids, like all these different locations around the world where these things are connecting up. And it sort of makes you wonder, with the spiritual side of things, have they been able to communicate around the world using these sort of energies that are around the world, whilst also connecting to these interdimensional beings or whatever? It brings a lot of questions on that sort of things. Like there's a lot of history there that's been lost, but so many different theories.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, yeah, you mentioned the pyramids. A lot of these ancient monuments seem to align with something in the stars. Like it seems to align with Orion, or it points to the Pleiades. So it tells me that, there must be some connection to the stars and to the ancient spiritual practices. And I mean, in ancient Egypt, they have, and not just ancient Egypt, but they have, I guess, the hieroglyphs and the carvings of like half bird, half human, half lion, half human, all those, it looks like humanoid hybrids.
Mm.
And maybe, okay, some historians say it might be metaphoric, but what if they were actually beings that were the bird people or the lion people or the cat people, which has been talked about quite a lot now through experiences. There's quite a few people I know who've talked about the lion people, and from Lyra. And yeah, so I remember now what that connection was. You were talking about the abilities, like, how do we develop these extrasensory abilities? I think, yeah, like telepathy. And that's another thing. When you read a lot and you talk to a lot of people that are experiencers, the main language is telepathy, or the main mode of communication, that is through telepathy. And so I think, there's telepathy, going through, being able to travel through different dimensions. There's a lot of these abilities that apparently we could maybe harness if we knew, if we were trained and we knew how to, like, the whole remote viewing thing. It's just that it's kind of pushed away as, just woo-woo. I think that's why we can't find really good courses. I think they are around, but we have to really hunt for them.
Yeah, you got to really have a big interest in it too. You have to have the mindset and the open mind to be able to approach this. Because like a lot of people, and I'll say myself as well. Like I look at everything from a logical point of view. Like everything that's in front of me is real. Obviously I'm open minded to everything, all the possibilities. But to me, I'm I'm kind of straight and narrow. And it's sort of hard to sort of get a grasp on if these things are real when it comes to people claiming, what are they? The prediction. I've forgotten what they're called now. Absolute mind blank. People predicting futures and stuff like that. What do they call me? I can't even think what they're called now.
I guess.
I can't think of it now. Is that absolute mind blank?
I know what you mean. Yeah, so they can foresee the future, predict the future. Yeah.
Obviously there are
precognition. Is it precognition?
I think that might be a bit more of a scientific term, but I can't even think of it now. Surely someone's listening here in the comments. They can go and remind us what these people that can predict futures are. It's such a simple word too. Psychic. There you go. Thank you, Aaron. Getting the statement today.
Psychic.
Psychic. That one. Obviously there's some frauds out there, but if there are people that sort of claim to be able to predict the futures or have sort of some sort of guide or connection there that can sort of foresee someone's future. I don't like using this word skeptic because I hate that word. But it sort of makes you wonder where that sort of connection comes through, like in the human history of being able to have that sort of ability and that sort of things. Have you had any dealings with that sort of things at all? Because I've heard stories where people have gone to a psychic and they've had some readings and whatnot, and they've come out mind blowing on, this person was bang on with a lot of things. Obviously they're not fact checking through Facebook prior, but but there's some weird things out there.
Yeah, I know. I mean, I've been to see quite a few psychics or clairvoyants, and I would say a very small percentage actually came true or actually described a person that I was about to meet in very specific detail, like, likes to play golf, has a 12-year-old son. Yeah, there was one time this man told me that, and I thought, no way. And then I met him and we did have a relationship. But I mean, if that happens, then where do they get that information from? And does that mean that our life has already been laid out? Because if they could see that, if he could see that man that's going to be coming into my life, where did he see it? Is it in my energy field? And, you're right, there are, there's different grades of quality of the psychic abilities. And I think it's very quite rare to have a clairvoyant that's really accurate, like 100%. Sometimes they're accurate maybe 50% or 20% of what they say. How much is it intuition, or how much is it just guessing? But but I think there are a few that can actually predict your future. But I think, it might be less than many, less than more.
And like you said, like you sort of make you wonder, like, where are they getting this information from? That's the confusing part. so, so look, I want to get before we're going to get close to the end of the show here. We're nearly punching nearly an hour and a half here, so a bit more than what we're aiming for. But so I want to ask, it does go fast. But I just want to go back to your personal experiences there, where you were experiencing these strange objects there, like and you're like how you're saying you have some sort of connection with the Pleiadians. Have you had like any like sort of experiences there as like throughout your childhood, or has anyone in your family has some sort of experiences there where they could guide you on that path where abductions may have been happening, missing time, or anything like that in your lifetime at all?
No one in my family. They're very 3D, I'm the odd one out. I've got I'm the one with the strange ideas, beliefs, hobbies. No one. But I don't know if I've been abducted. I don't know. I've had some strange dreams, but I'm trying to piece together, but I'm not sure. I haven't. There was a period of time where I did a lot of spiritual searching and was meditating every day, but then I felt like I couldn't relate to the people. I was starting to not being able to relate to people in my life, and so I stopped that, and I haven't really gone right back into that sort of practice as deeply as I had for a while. I seem to be more looking into, being more in this 3D world and kind of drawing on, things that I've seen and done and looking more into that rather than trying to find out my Pleiadian origins. But I'm hoping that one day we would be able to meet them, like as if, physically, like as if they're walking amongst us. Apparently they are already walking amongst us. It's just that they're in disguise or they look like us.
Yeah, definitely.
I'm
hoping for the same thing too, it'd be great to have them like, go a bit of like a Star Wars style kind of thing, where everyone's just sort of mingling together, there's no worries on how everyone looks or talks, none of that sort of crap that goes on, It'll be great to have that sort of lifestyle, I reckon. Like, I think it's kind of the point now in human society where it needs to be opened up in reality, finally breached through the walls of this hidden societies that it's going out. Once that's done, things are going to be a lot more open to the world, people will be a lot more accepting. Sure, it's going to create like a bit of a pandemic at the start there, but once it all comes through and people get used to the idea, it'll become a normal. So the sooner the better, I feel.
Yes, definitely, me too. And I think maybe after people have a big shock and the whole cognitive dissonance or, whatever people have to go through, after a while, I think people might even feel, actually, this feels quite natural, or is a bit of like, it's almost like an ancient memory that, this kind of feels familiar.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, why are people really drawn to movies like Star Wars or Star Trek? Like, why do we love those movies, really feel drawn to those movies?
Yeah, I definitely feel too, like with those movies there with Steven Spielberg there, he's had some sort of knowledge there of what's out there, and he's sort of related these movies to sort of give us a bit of a good hint of what's to come. At least I'm hoping so anyway. Here comes a little sci-fi nerd out of me.
Yes, I've had people come up to me, I've had people say, oh, the ETs that I saw look like that in the Star Wars. Or I think the Sith Lord, is it the sixth Lord, the Sith, the
Yep.
red, yeah,
Oh,
with
yeah, Darth
the
Maul.
horns. Darth Maul, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I've had a few people say they've seen reptilians, the royal reptilians had the horns. They look like him. Some of them look like him.
Okay.
But I also want to mention some archaeological digs. Like there's one in Al Ubaid in Iraq. They've dug up some figurines, some reptilian figurines, and I think they're being displayed in the British Museum. Also in LA, they uncovered some catacombs of some lizard people. I think that's underground Fort Moore. There was a newspaper article on it.
Is there an online link for it at all?
Yes. Is there what, sorry?
An online link at all? You can find it on the online somewhere?
Yeah, I can give you the link.
Yep, that'd be great. If you can... No, it's when you're ready. I can provide that into the show notes and people can go and check it out.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I'll give you the links.
Yeah, that'll be good. But yeah, no, that's quite interesting. Obviously, there's some sort of history there. Like, people have obviously claimed reptilians and different other species of beings. Are they the overlords of the entire world, controlling us from underground or wherever they are? It sort of makes you wonder. Because I've had people on the show here where they've had experiences with reptilians and they've had quite a scary experience with them. Like, very evil and very controlling, a really bad sort of agenda about them. But I've also had one there where they've claimed like it was fine. They had no negativity or, the experience was good. So it's like, is there a evil side, good side of these reptilians? So many questions on that sort of things, but obviously there would be some sort of war going on between the different species that people have claimed that are out there. Because I've had another guest on the show who has had 2 crafts that have battled it out and ended up one being crashed into a tree. So it makes you wonder, it's a scary world of unknowing.
Yes. I think we're going to be blown away. There'll be so much to learn. We would be so busy.
Yep.
Yeah, we would be so busy, and the whole galaxy will be opened up for us rather than just our Earth, and we would have to rejiggle our perception, our prejudices. Yeah, but I think there is good and bad in all races, just like people, and that everyone has a different agenda or their own agenda.
Yeah. Look, I also think people just need to be a good person. Like, everyone's got their own agendas and that, but just be a good person about it. No need to be, evil. No need to go and sort of be an arsehole about things. Like, people all have their own different experiences and such like, but look, there's no need for it. Just need to approach things respectfully and be an overall good person. Really, just be cool.
Yes.
But before we end up the show, look, I do have a question here for you from Em. She's asked if you have any theories or ideas about the UFO connection with bodies of water around Port Phillip Bay in Victoria. There, have you any reports on that?
I don't know about Port Victoria Bay. I've heard of there was a body of water in New South Wales where people saw a UFO suck some water out.
Yeah, Gosford.
Like up to the ship. Oh, Gosford, that's right, yeah. But is she talking about, did people actually see this UFO above a body of water?
I'm assuming so, because it's saying like there's must be like some sort of connection there with water around Port Phillip Bay. So that obviously people must be seeing something going around there.
Okay. Yeah, quite possibly. I mean, yeah. I mean, the Gosford one, that's interesting, all that water being sucked up, they need our water or...
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's interesting because have you heard of Valiant Thor, the Venetian, the guy
Yeah,
from
I've heard that.
Venus?
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. Apparently, his aircraft, his spaceship, Victor One, is over Lake Mead, which is a huge body of water. So
Yep.
he's kind of stationed but invisible above a body of water.
Okay.
I don't know whether, yeah, it depends what that craft is there for. Is it there all the time, a lot of the time, or just visiting, or
Yeah.
yeah?
Yeah, no, she's just saying in the comments there, yeah, it's just coming out of the water and just flying around. Doesn't.
Oh, coming out of the water.
Yep.
Did she say? Oh yes, yep. I've heard of people seeing spaceships coming out of the water, going in the water. So there must be some base, maybe underground. Maybe it is, the whole, I don't know, hollow Earth thing.
Yeah. Well, it's possible.
Yeah, they go through. Yeah, maybe there is a base there.
Well,
I
what
mean,
better
yeah.
place?
Sorry.
What better place? Like under the ground or
Oh,
under the ocean? Is pretty vast.
yeah. Yes, that's right. It's safe, and they can be what do you call it? Yeah, it can be done in secret because yeah, they can't be seen. Yeah, I mean, most of our Earth is water, so there must be a lot of space under there.
Definitely. Definitely.
Hmm.
Now, well, if before we end up, is there anything else you want to add to the show before we end it?
Um, just that if people, I mean, if the people are experiencing good things, that's wonderful. But if the people are experiencing bad things, like you were saying about the post-trauma, yeah, go and find a support group or talk to someone about it. Mary Rodwell, she's got some support groups happening in Queensland, or she can direct you to, see someone who are open-minded or who can guide you through without judging you as being crazy. And yeah, I don't know. Yeah, share your story. Don't be afraid to share your story.
Absolutely. Are you open to people contacting you at all in regards to their paranormal experiences and investigations with UFOs as well, or?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, no, I'd love to. Yeah, I'm happy for people to contact me. If I don't answer straight away, it's just that I'm busy. Yeah, but I'll try and read every email. But yeah, feel free to share my email.
No worries. Yeah, I'll do that for sure. I'll send it through and put that into the show notes. But so yeah, look, thank you very much for coming on the show. It's been absolutely great chatting with you. We've covered like so many different aspects on this sort of thing. It's we could have kept going pretty much all night because it can just go so many different places. So yeah, look, it's absolutely fantastic having you on here, and so thank you very much.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you, Anthony. It's been a lot of fun, and yeah, I've really enjoyed our conversation. Thank you.
No worries. Thank you very much. All right, cheers to that, and I'll talk to you soon.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. And that will do it, folks, for this episode of Encounters Down Under. I hope you enjoyed the show, and remember, you can also get involved in the show by joining the Facebook page and getting in on the live streams. Also, please be sure to share with your friends and family to help us grow and potentially find our next guest on the show. If you or you know someone who has had an encounter, please get in touch with me through our Facebook page via Messenger or email at australianUFOsightings@outlook.com.au. I look forward to seeing you on the next Encounter Down Under. Hooroo!